The bus stop was a pool of sodium light in a sea of midnight dark, its plastic bench chipped and graffitied, the schedule sign faded to illegibility. Lena sat alone, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled from a 12-hour shift, her sneakers scuffing the cracked pavement. Her backpack, heavy with textbooks, slumped against her leg. The air smelled of diesel and wet asphalt, the city's pulse faint at 2 a.m. She checked her phone, no service, battery at 8%. The bus was late. Again. Footsteps echoed from the alley across the street, sharp, deliberate, not the shuffle of a drunk or the hurry of a commuter. Lena's shoulders tensed. She didn't look up, but her fingers tightened around the pepper spray in her pocket, a gift from her sister after last month's incident. A man emerged into the light, mid-20s, leather jacket, boots too polished for this part of town. He leaned against a lamppost, lighting a cigarette. His eyes locked on her, not curious, not casual, predatory. "Hey, nurse," he called, voice slick as oil. "Long shift?" Lena ignored him, staring at the empty road. Her heart thudded, but she kept her face blank. She'd learned that lesson: don't engage, don't react. He flicked ash onto the pavement, stepping closer. "I'm talking to you." Rude to ignore a guy just being friendly. She shifted, pulling her backpack closer. The street was empty, no cars, no witnesses. Just the hum of the streetlight and the distant wail of a siren that wouldn't come here. The man, Jake, she'd later learn, crossed the street, boots clicking. He stopped 5 feet away, close enough to smell his cologne, cheap and sharp. "You deaf or just stuck up?" he said, louder now, testing her. Lena's thumb pressed the pepper spray's trigger guard. "I'm waiting for my bus," she said, voice steady but low. "Leave me alone." He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, she speaks. Thought you were a statue." He took another step, now close enough to cast a shadow over her. His hand rested on something under his jacket, a bulge that wasn't a phone. Lena's stomach dropped. She'd seen that shape before, a month ago, when he'd followed her from the hospital, whispering her name like he knew her. Across the street, unnoticed, an older man stood in the shadow of a shuttered bodega. Denim jacket, boots scuffed by years, a baseball cap pulled low. He carried a paper grocery bag, the kind that crinkles softly. His steps were silent as he moved closer, pausing at the edge of the light. He didn't speak, didn't intervene, just watched, his breath slow and even. Jake leaned closer to Lena, his voice dropping to a mock whisper. "You know, I see you here every Tuesday night. Same scrubs, same bag. You're predictable. That's dangerous in a city like this." He reached out, fingers brushing her backpack strap. She jerked away, standing now, pepper spray half raised. "Don't touch me," she said, louder than she meant. Her voice cracked, betraying fear she didn't want to show. Jake grinned, stepping into her space, his shadow swallowing hers. "Or what? You gonna spray me? Go ahead, nurse. See what happens." The older man set his grocery bag down on the sidewalk, the crinkle barely audible. He straightened, his silhouette sharpening under the streetlight. Lena didn't see him yet, her eyes locked on Jake's hand, still hovering near his jacket. The bulge was clearer now, a gun, she was sure. Her breath hitched, the world narrowing to the space between them. Then, a voice, low and steady, cut through the night. "Step back, son." The words weren't loud, but they carried weight, like stones dropped into still water. Jake froze, head turning slowly. The older man stood 10 feet away, hands loose at his sides, cap shadowing his eyes. She said, "Leave her alone." "You heard her." Jake's grin faltered, then returned, sharper. "Mind your business, old man. This ain't your stop." He squared his shoulders, hand inching toward his jacket. The older man didn't move, didn't flinch. His voice stayed calm, almost gentle. I'm making it my stop. Walk away. Lena's eyes darted to the stranger, her grip on the pepper spray tightening. She didn't know him, but something in his stance, steady, unyielding, felt like a lifeline. Jake laughed again, but it was thinner now, less certain. You some kind of hero? You don't even know her. The older man tilted his head, just enough for the light to catch his face. Weathered, bearded, eyes like steel. I know enough, he said. Last chance. Walk. Jake's hand twitched, but he didn't draw. Not yet. The air was electric, the silence between words heavier than the city's hum. Lena's heart pounded, her mind racing. Who was this man? Why was he here? And why did Jake, with his gun and his swagger, hesitate? The street light flickered, casting jagged shadows across the bus stop. Lena's breath caught in her throat, her fingers numb around the pepper spray. Jake's hand hovered near his jacket, the bulge unmistakable now. The older man stood still, his cap low, his voice a quiet command. Walk away, he repeated, each word deliberate, like a judge's gavel. Jake's eyes narrowed, his bravado fraying. You don't know who you're messing with, old man. He stepped closer, boots scraping the pavement, trying to reclaim control. This ain't your fight. His voice was loud, performative, but his glance darted to the empty street, checking for witnesses. The older man didn't answer. He shifted his weight, just a fraction, boots planting wider. His hands stayed loose, but his eyes, sharp, unblinking, pinned Jake like a specimen. Lena noticed it then, the way the stranger's calm seemed to shrink the space around him, making Jake's posturing look small, almost childish. You got an aim, hero? Jake sneered, hand still near his jacket. He was testing, probing, looking for a crack in the stranger's resolve. The older man tilted his head, light catching the gray in his beard. Doesn't matter, he said. What matters is her. She's scared. You're the reason. Fix it. Lena's chest tightened. No one had ever stood up for her like this, not her coworkers, not the police she'd called after Jake's first threats. She'd filed a report, but the officer had shrugged, no proof, no crime. Now, this stranger, with no stake in her life, was drawing a line in the dirt. She wanted to speak, to tell him to walk away, that Jake wasn't worth it. But her voice stuck, trapped behind fear. Jake laughed, a hollow sound. Fix it? You think you can fix me? He stepped closer, now only 3 feet from the older man, his hand brushing the jacket's edge. You don't know what I can do. The threat hung heavy, the gun's outline clearer under the streetlight. The older man's eyes flicked to Lena, then back to Jake. I know what you won't do, he said, voice low but firm. You won't touch her again. It wasn't a threat, not exactly, just a statement, like the sky was dark or the bus was late. Jake's smirk faltered, his hand freezing mid-motion. A car passed, its headlights sweeping the scene, briefly illuminating the older man's face. Lena caught a glimpse, lines etched deep, eyes steady, a quiet strength that didn't need volume. She didn't recognize him, not yet, but Jake did. His eyes widened, just for a second, before he masked it with a scowl. You're nobody, he spat, but his voice cracked, betraying doubt. From the alley, more footsteps. 2 figures emerged, Jake's friends, Lena realized, her heart sinking. One was tall, wiry, with a shaved head and a chain necklace glinting. The other was stockier, a hoodie pulled tight, hands in pockets. They flanked Jake, their presence shifting the air, making the bus stop feel smaller, more dangerous. Problem, Jake? The wiry one asked, his voice casual but eyes hard. He glanced at the older man, sizing him up, then at Lena, a smirk curling his lip. This the nurse? Yeah, Jake said, regaining some swagger. And this guy thinks he's her bodyguard. The stocky one laughed, stepping closer. Old man, you lost? This ain't your scene. The older man didn't flinch. He looked at the newcomers, his gaze steady, assessing. 3 of you, he said, almost to himself. Makes it interesting. His tone was calm, conversational, but it carried an edge that made the stocky one pause. Lena's pulse raced. She wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. The pepper spray was useless now, 3 against 1, and Jake's gun still loomed. She glanced at the older man, expecting fear, retreat, anything but the quiet confidence in his stance. Who was he? Why wasn't he backing down? Last chance, the older man said, addressing all 3. Walk away, or you won't. The words were soft, but they cut through the night, silencing the trio's bravado. Jake's hand twitched toward his jacket again, but the wiry one grabbed his arm, whispering something. Jake shook him off, anger flaring. I'm not scared of some grandpa. The older man took a single step forward, closing the gap to 2 feet. You should be, he said, voice like gravel. The street light flickered again, and for a moment, Lena swore she saw recognition in Jake's eyes. Not just fear, but something deeper, like he'd seen a ghost. The bus stop felt like a stage, the sodium light a spotlight pinning Lena, Jake, his 2 friends, and the older man in a tense tableau. Jake's hand hovered near his jacket, the gun's outline stark now. The wiry one shifted, chain necklace glinting, while the stocky one cracked his knuckles, a cheap attempt at intimidation. Lena's pepper spray felt like a toy in her hand, her breath shallow, eyes darting between the men and the empty road. No bus, no help, just this stranger, standing like a wall between her and danger. Grandpa's got a death wish, the stocky one said, stepping closer. His voice was loud, but his eyes flicked nervously to the older man, who hadn't moved. You know who we are, he added, puffing his chest. We run this block. The older man tilted his cap back, just enough for the light to catch his eyes, gray, unyielding, like a storm cloud before thunder. I don't care who you are, he said. I care who she is. He nodded toward Lena, his voice steady. She's going home safe. You're not stopping her. Lena's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken for her like that, not in this city where I slid away from trouble. She wanted to thank him, to tell him to run, but fear glued her lips shut. Jake laughed, a brittle sound, and pulled his jacket back, revealing the gun's handle tucked into his waistband. You're out of your league, old man. Walk away, or you're done. The older man's eyes flicked to the gun, then back to Jake's face. That's not a toy, he said, voice low. You pull it, you'd better be ready to use it. And you're not. The words weren't a challenge, just a fact, delivered with the certainty of someone who'd seen guns drawn before, and walked away. Jake's hand froze, his bravado cracking. The wiry one stepped forward, trying to fill the gap. You think you're tough? 3 of us, 1 of you. Math ain't on your side. He pulled a knife from his pocket, a short blade that gleamed under the light. Lena gasped, her pepper spray slipping in her sweaty palm. The older man didn't flinch. He shifted, angling his body slightly, hands still loose. Math doesn't win fights, he said. Choices do. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made the wiry one pause, knife half raised. Lena saw it then. The stranger wasn't just standing there, he was ready, every muscle coiled, not for show but for purpose. A distant rumble broke the silence, the bus, finally approaching, its headlights cutting through the dark. Lena's heart leapt, but Jake's eyes hardened. You're not getting on that bus, he said to her, voice low and venomous. We're not done. Yes, you are, the older man said, stepping forward, now only a foot from Jake. The move was subtle, but it shifted the dynamic. Jake's friends hesitated, their confidence wavering. The bus's brakes hissed, doors opening with a groan. Lena glanced at it, then at the stranger, torn between running and staying. Get on the bus, the older man said, not looking at her, his eyes locked on Jake. I've got this. His voice was quiet, but it carried a promise, not of violence but of certainty. Lena hesitated, then grabbed her backpack, sprinting for the bus. The driver, an older woman with tired eyes, glanced at the scene but said nothing, holding the door open. Jake lunged, not for Lena but for the older man, his hand grabbing for the gun. The stranger moved faster, impossibly fast for his age. His hand shot out, catching Jake's wrist mid-draw, twisting just enough to lock the joint. Jake grunted, the gun staying in his waistband, his arm immobilized. "Don't," the older man said, voice like steel. The wiry one swung his knife, a clumsy arc. The older man sidestepped, still holding Jake's wrist, and used his free hand to deflect the blade, redirecting the wiry one's momentum into the stocky one. They collided, cursing, the knife clattering to the pavement. Lena froze at the bus door, watching, her breath caught. "Get on," the older man repeated, his voice cutting through her shock. She stumbled aboard, the driver closing the door behind her. Through the window, she saw Jake wrench free, stumbling back, his friends scrambling to their feet. The older man stood unmoved, hands loose again, as if nothing had happened. The bus pulled away, Lena's eyes glued to the scene. Jake shouted something, but the words were lost in the engine's roar. The older man didn't chase, didn't fight, just stood, watching them retreat into the alley. As the bus turned a corner, Lena caught one last glimpse, the stranger picking up his grocery bag, its crinkle faint in the night. The bus rumbled through the city, its fluorescent lights harsh against the dark windows. Lena sat near the back, clutching her backpack, her heart still racing. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror but said nothing, her hands steady on the wheel. Lena's mind replayed the bus stop, Jake's gun, the knife, the older man's calm defiance. Who was he? Why had he risked himself for her? Her phone buzzed, now at 5% battery, a single bar of service flickering. A text from her sister, "You okay? Bus late again?" Lena typed a shaky reply, "I'm fine. Tell you later." She couldn't explain yet, not when her hands still trembled, the pepper spray warm in her palm. She glanced out the window, half expecting Jake's face in the shadows, but the streets were empty, the city indifferent. At the hospital, where she'd worked the night shift, Lena's co-workers had noticed Jake stalking but dismissed it. "Just a clingy ex," one said. "He'll get bored." The security guard had laughed when she reported Jake lingering in the parking lot, no crime in standing around. Now, a stranger had done what no one else would, stood between her and danger, without hesitation. The bus stopped at her apartment complex, a gray slab of a building with flickering hallway lights. Lena hesitated, scanning the lot before stepping off. The driver's voice broke her thoughts. "You need me to wait?" Lena shook her head, forcing a smile. "I'm okay. Thanks." The doors closed, and the bus rolled away, leaving her alone again. Inside her apartment, Lena locked the door, slid the chain, and checked the windows. Her studio was small, cluttered with textbooks and scrubs, the air smelling of coffee and lavender from a candle she'd forgotten to blow out. She sank onto the couch, the night's events crashing over her. The older man's words echoed, "She's going home safe." She didn't even know his name. Across town, at a 24-hour diner, the older man sat in a corner booth, his grocery bag on the seat beside him. A waitress poured coffee, her eyes lingering on his weathered face. "Rough night?" she asked, noting the faint bruise on his knuckle from deflecting the knife. He smiled faintly. "Just a long one." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, not a receipt, but a photo, creased and worn. A woman, maybe 60, with kind eyes and a smile like his. His wife, Lena would later learn, who'd passed years ago but whose memory still guided him. He sipped his coffee, the diner's hum a soft counterpoint to the night's tension. He hadn't fought for glory, only for what was right. Back at the bus stop, Jake and his friends had vanished into the alley, but not far. In a dimly lit parking lot behind a shuttered bar, Jake paced, his gun now tucked in his backpack. "Who was that guy?" he muttered, his voice tight. The wiry one, nursing a bruised elbow, shrugged. "Some old dude playing hero. We'll find him." The stocky one, still winded from the collision, shook his head. "You saw how he moved. That wasn't normal. I'm telling you, he's somebody." Jake snorted, but his eyes betrayed doubt. He'd recognized something in the older man's face, a flicker of familiarity he couldn't place. "Doesn't matter," he said. "He's not here now." She's not getting away next time. Lena, in her apartment, opened her laptop, the screen's glow harsh against her tired eyes. She searched for older man intervenes bus stop, hoping for a news clip, a name, anything. Nothing came up, just stories of muggings and ignored cries for help. The city was full of them. She typed another search, hesitating, older man, strong, calm, intervenes. A few articles popped up, one mentioning a Chuck Norris lookalike helping a woman in a store. Lena froze. It couldn't be. She clicked the article, her heart pounding. A grainy photo showed a man in a denim jacket, cap low, standing between a cashier and a stalker. The story was vague, but the description matched: quiet, controlled, fearless. Lena's breath caught. Was it him? The name felt impossible, like a movie script, but the eyes in the photo, steady, unyielding, were the same. Lena woke to sunlight slicing through her blinds, her laptop still open on the couch. The article about the Chuck Norris lookalike stared back, the grainy photo haunting her. She hadn't slept well, dreams of Jake's gun blending with the older man's voice. You're not stopping her. Her phone buzzed, her sister again, call me. Worried. Lena ignored it, her mind on the stranger. Was he really Chuck Norris? Or just a man who'd stepped up when no one else would? She showered, the hot water doing little to ease the knot in her chest. At the hospital, her shift started at noon, but she dreaded the walk to the bus stop. Jake knew her schedule, Tuesday nights, Thursday mornings, always the same route. She told the police about his stalking, but their response was always the same: no direct threat, no action. The restraining order she'd filed was still pending, lost in bureaucratic limbo. At the hospital, Lena's coworker, Maya, noticed her distraction. You okay, girl? You look like you saw a ghost. Lena hesitated, then told her about the bus stop, the stranger, the gun, the knife. Maya's eyes widened. And this old guy just handled them? Like, no fear? Lena nodded, showing her the article. Maya squinted at the photo. No way. That's gotta be a stunt double or something. Chuck Norris is, like, ancient. Lena didn't laugh. He didn't fight like he was ancient. He moved like, I don't know, like he knew exactly what to do. Maya leaned closer, voice low. You think it was him? For real? Lena shrugged, but the possibility gnawed at her. If it was Chuck Norris, why was he at her bus stop? If it wasn't, who was he? Across town, in a police station, the older man sat in a cramped interview room, giving a statement. Just groceries, he said, explaining his presence at the bus stop. Saw a young woman in trouble. Couldn't walk away. The officer, a young man with a buzz cut, scribbled notes. You took on 3 guys, one armed, without throwing a punch. That's unusual. The older man, Chuck, though he hadn't given his name, shrugged. Didn't need to. They made their choices. The officer raised an eyebrow. You sound like you've done this before. Chuck's eyes flicked to the photo on his wallet, the one of his wife. Enough times, he said, voice quiet. The officer leaned back. We pulled the bus stop's camera footage. It's grainy, but it shows the guy with the gun, Jake Carter. Known for petty theft, harassment. No arrests yet, not enough evidence. The woman, Lena Ruiz, filed a report last month, but we couldn't act without proof. Chuck's jaw tightened. She was proof. Her fear was proof. The officer sighed. System's slow. We need more than fear to make a move. Chuck leaned forward, his voice low but firm. You wait for proof, she pays the price. That's not justice. The officer shifted, uncomfortable, but said nothing. Chuck stood, picking up his grocery bag. I'll be around if you need me. Outside, Jake and his friends were regrouping in a dive bar, the kind with sticky floors and neon signs missing half their letters. Jake slammed a beer bottle down, his face flushed. He humiliated me, he spat. Some old guy, acting like he owns the street. The wiry one, nursing a bruised arm, muttered, "He wasn't just some guy. You saw how he moved. Like he's done this before." The stocky one, scrolling his phone, froze. "Yo, check this." He showed a blurry video from a gossip site, titled "Chuck Norris Saves Cashier." It was a different incident, but the man's face, calm, bearded, cap low, matched. Jake's eyes narrowed. "No way. That's not him. Can't be." But doubt crept in, his bravado crumbling. Lena, at the hospital, clocked out early, too shaken to finish her shift. She called the police, asking about her report. The desk sergeant was curt, "No new evidence, ma'am. We're monitoring." She hung up, frustration burning. The system had failed her, just like it had failed Maria in the grocery store story, just like it had failed Emma's classmates. She thought of the stranger's words, "I know enough." He'd seen her fear and acted. Why couldn't the police? The next Tuesday night, Lena stood at the same bus stop, her stomach knotted. She'd taken a cab to work, avoiding the bus, but couldn't afford it both ways. The street light buzzed, the air colder now, her scrubs thin against the wind. She'd called the police again, begging for a patrol. They'd promised to swing by, but the street was empty, the schedule sign mocking her with its faded letters. She checked her phone, 1:55 a.m., no bus yet. Her pepper spray was in her hand now, not her pocket. She scanned the shadows, every sound, a car backfiring, a dog barking, making her jump. Jake hadn't shown since the incident, but his absence felt worse, like a storm building. She'd seen the gossip site video, the comments calling the stranger Chuck Norris. She didn't believe it, not fully, but it was all she had to hold on to. Across the street, the bodega's shutters rattled as a figure stepped out. Lena's heart leapt, then steadied. It was him, the older man, same denim jacket, same cap, a new grocery bag in hand. He didn't approach, just nodded, a silent promise, "I'm here." Lena exhaled, her grip on the pepper spray loosening. Then, footsteps. Jake emerged from the alley, alone this time, his leather jacket gleaming under the light. No friends, no posturing, just him, eyes locked on Lena. "Miss me?" he called, voice low, dangerous. He stopped 10 feet away, hands in pockets, the gun's outline clear. Lena froze, her breath shallow. The older man stepped into the light, grocery bag set down again. "She told you to leave her alone," he said, voice calm but unyielding. Jake's eyes flicked to him, recognition dawning. "You again," he snarled. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" "I think you're making a mistake," the older man said, stepping closer. "You've got a choice. Walk away, or face what comes." His hands stayed loose, but his stance was a wall, immovable. Lena's eyes darted between them, her voice breaking free. "Please, Jake, just go." Jake ignored her, focused on the older man. "You're not Chuck Norris," he spat, but his voice trembled, doubt creeping in. He pulled the gun, not aiming, just showing it. "You're nobody." The street light flickered, the buzz louder now, like a warning. The older man, Chuck, didn't flinch. "Put it down, son," he said, voice soft but firm. "You're not a killer. Don't make yourself one." Jake's hand shook, the gun wavering. Lena stepped back, her back against the bus stop's plastic shelter, pepper spray raised but useless. Headlights cut through the dark, the bus, finally. Jake's eyes darted to it, then back to Chuck. "This isn't over," he hissed, backing away, gun still in hand. He vanished into the alley as the bus doors opened. Chuck turned to Lena. "Get on. I'll follow." Lena boarded, her legs trembling, Chuck behind her. The driver, the same woman, nodded silently, as if she'd seen this before. Through the window, Lena watched the empty bus stop, Jake's shadow gone but his threat lingering. Chuck sat across from her, grocery bag on his lap, silent but present. The bus hummed through the city, its seats mostly empty, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows. Lena sat near the front, her backpack clutched tight, Chuck across the aisle, his grocery bag crinkling softly. He hadn't spoken since they boarded, his cap low, eyes scanning the windows. Lena wanted to thank him, to ask his name, but the words wouldn't come. The weight of the night pressed down, her fear now mixed with awe. At the police station, Lena gave her statement, her voice steadier than she expected. "He had a gun," she said, describing Jake's threats, the older man's intervention. The officer, the same buzz-cut young man, took notes, his expression grim. "We'll issue a warrant for Jake Carter," he said. "But you're lucky this guy was there." He nodded toward Chuck, who stood by the door, silent. Chuck gave his statement next, brief and to the point. "Saw a young woman in trouble. Did what I had to." The officer pressed for details, but Chuck offered little, his eyes on the photo in his wallet. Lena caught a glimpse, his wife, smiling. She understood then, he wasn't just a hero, he was a man carrying his own losses, acting because someone once needed him to. Outside, dawn broke, the city waking in soft grays and pinks. Lena and Chuck stood on the station steps, the air cool, the street quiet. "Why did you help me?" she asked, voice small. Chuck looked at her, his eyes kind but firm. "Because you needed it," he said. "And because someone taught me that standing still isn't the same as standing by." He handed her a small card, not a business card, just an address, handwritten, for a self-defense class. "You're stronger than you know," he said. "Learn to show it." Lena took the card, her fingers brushing his. "Are you Chuck Norris?" she asked, half expecting a laugh. He smiled, faint but real. "Just Chuck," he said. He picked up his grocery bag and walked away, his boots fading into the morning. Lena watched, the card heavy in her hand. She didn't know if Jake would be caught, if the system would finally work. But she knew she wasn't alone anymore. A week later, Lena stood at the same bus stop, the card tucked in her pocket. She'd signed up for the class, her first step toward reclaiming her strength. The street light buzzed, but the shadows felt less heavy. She left a single daisy on the bench, a quiet thank you to the man who'd stopped when no one else did. The bus arrived, and she boarded, her head high. No voiceover, just the hum of the engine and the city waking. Text faded in, she wasn't saved. She was seen. And that was enough.